In my previous life, my husband's white moonlight and I were in a car accident. I watched helplessly as he picked up the white moonlight who had only scratched her skin and put her in the car. But on the phone, he told me not to pretend. Because of his delay, my son missed the best rescue time, and I broke a leg. When I woke up, I was furious. I cut the throat of his white moonlight with a fruit knife and jumped down from a high-rise building of the hospital with him. But I never expected that after taking revenge, I would be reborn. It wasn't until I overheard a conversation by accident that I understood that God gave me this opportunity to save my son and expose the evil deeds by the way. Then I must cherish this opportunity well. Penny, come quickly. I and the baby. Enough. Every time you use the baby as an excuse. Joy, can you stop pretending? Before Penny finished speaking, a delicate voice suddenly came to my ears. Brother Penny, my leg hurts so much. Uncle Penny, I feel dizzy. Don't be afraid. I'll send you to the hospital right away. I shook my dizzy head. The buzzing in my ears lessened a lot. Only then did I realize belatedly that the speaking voice was right above my head. If I'm not mistaken, it's probably less than 50 meters away. Could it be that the vehicle that collided with me just now belongs to Penny's white moonlight Rachel? I wanted to lean out to look, but my car is now on a small crooked tree. I didn't dare to move at all, for fear that if I moved again, the vehicle would slide into the deep ditch and neither my son nor I could survive. Fortunately, since Rachel returned to the country, I haven't been so dependent on Penny. Before calling him, I had already called an ambulance. Mom, I heard Dad's voice. My son Sonny had a large piece of broken glass stuck in his abdomen. Just now, his little face was almost pale. If it weren't for seeing that my son was in a bad state, I wouldn't have called Penny. Probably sensing Penny's change, my son has been very clingy to him recently. He always asks me anxiously if Dad is going to leave him. Now hearing Penny's voice and mistakenly thinking it's to save him, his spirits are much better than before. This is a good thing for me, and I can't bear to break his illusion. I hurriedly nodded. Yes, Sonny, be good. Dad will come and save us soon. Mom, I will be obedient and not move. Looking at my sensible son, my heart seemed to be tightly clutched. Ignoring the pain in my legs, I kept comforting him. Fortunately, before long, the sound of an ambulance came. But no matter how much I calculated, I didn't expect that Penny and Rachel would intercept the ambulance. The one who called the ambulance is you, right? Yes, it's us. Just now I accidentally hit the roadside fence while driving. Rachel's voice is as gentle as she is, but what she said is really chilling. Doctor, save my daughter quickly. Her head has been bleeding nonstop. Doctor, save us. I sensed that something was wrong. In a panic, I was at a loss. In my shouting, I unconsciously struggled. Immediately after, a crisp cracking sound suddenly came to my ears. In a critical moment, ignoring the pain in my legs, I quickly jumped back and protected my son's head in my arms. In the end, the car still slid into the deep ditch. In the continuous tumbling, I didn't know where I was hit and passed out. It was the rain that woke me up. When I woke up again, it was already nightfall. Countless lights were swaying above my head. I was saved. But although my son's head was protected by me, he lost his breath due to excessive blood loss caused by the broken glass stuck in his abdomen. I don't know how I spent those few days. All I know is that one of my legs is broken. My son is now in the cold morgue. And my husband, the man I once thought was my lifelong reliance. But he didn't even call me. Even the doctor couldn't contact him. He seemed to have disappeared. Until one day, a familiar conversation sounded outside my ward. Brother Penny, you've turned off your phone these days. Sister Joy will be angry if she can't find you. After Rachel finished speaking, there was a long silence outside. So long that when I thought she knew I was here and deliberately came to act to stimulate me, I heard Penny's voice. A very helpless sigh. He seemed like a victim. His tone was full of grievance. I don't know what's wrong with her recently. She always quarrels with me. Forget it. I'll go back and take a look in the evening. Yes, you should go back and take a look. As soon as Rachel's disappointed voice disappeared, her clever daughter spoke crisply. Uncle Penny, Nan has a headache. Can you not go back? Stay with Nan for one more night. Just one night, okay? All right, then Uncle will. As soon as Penny opened his mouth, I had already rolled off the hospital bed. This is God's opportunity for me. How could I miss it? Ignoring the pain in my broken leg, I supported myself with my hands. Sweat broke out all over my body. Only when Penny spoke again did I prop myself up and open the door of the ward. Joy, why are you here? Your leg. Penny's voice stopped abruptly. His handsome face was somewhat stunned. Rachel reacted quickly. She hurried over and supported my arm. When I shook her off, she was on the verge of tears but still wore a smile. Sister Joy, what's wrong with you? Even if you are angry with Brother Penny, you can't joke with your own body. What about Sonny? He's so small. It's not okay for him to be at home alone, right? Just 2 short sentences dispelled Penny's astonishment. His face was as cold as frost, somewhat disappointed. Joy, you are so disappointing. Where is our son? I'll take him to our parents' house. In the morgue. You can go and send him off. My tone was icy. Penny was at a loss. What are you talking about? Rachel was slightly stunned. Sister Joy, Sonny is so lovely. As his mother, how can you curse him like this? Yes. Aunt Joy, I just saw Sonny brother being picked up by the nanny. The little child, with an innocent face, said words that made me feel cold all over. I was so angry that I laughed instead. Are you sure? She nodded very seriously. I was crazy. Then do you want to go and play with him? Really? The little girl pretended to look expectant. I nodded. Then you and your mother help Auntie go inside first. After that, Auntie will take you to see Sonny brother, okay? The little girl looked puzzled. Rachel, on the other hand, had already enthusiastically rushed over. She helped me walk towards the ward, whispering provocatively as we walked. Joy, you'd better be lame. Then the position of Mrs. Penny will be mine. I just smiled and didn't say a word. I shouted to Penny, who followed in. Close the door. I'm afraid of the cold. After I finished speaking, I looked at the statement pressed under the pillow. That was what I had prepared long ago. I had planned to find them when my leg got better. Unexpectedly, they came to me first. I picked up the fruit knife on the table without changing my expression. Rachel, peel an apple for me. Although Rachel was puzzled, she still reached out to take the knife from me. But my knife didn't land in her hand. Instead, it was placed across her neck. Rachel's exclamation of surprise didn't even come out before I cut her throat. Her daughter wanted to scream, but I covered her mouth in one go. At this moment, I am probably no different from a devil, because my husband's face was full of fear and shock. He told me not to be impulsive, but how is that possible? My son is dead. You tell me not to be impulsive? Penny, you can really say that. Do you know? On the day you rescued them, mother and daughter, my son and I were less than 100 meters away from them. My son thought you were his hero and would come to save us. But what did you do? Penny was somewhat incoherent. I was too lazy to talk nonsense with him. I lowered my head and asked the little girl, who was trembling, with a smile. Didn't you want to go and play with Sonny brother? Auntie will help you, okay? After I finished speaking, a blood flower had already bloomed on her chest. And I, under Penny's stunned gaze, jumped to the window and managed to sit on the not-so-high windowsill. Joy, don't be stupid. It's really ridiculous. At this time, he does think of me. Then let's go together. I beckoned to him. Then come and hold me. He was obedient. Probably he didn't expect that I would jump down from a tall building with him in my arms. His raised foot kicked over the pillow, and the disclaimer under the pillow floated to the ground. I closed my eyes contentedly and waited to be reunited with my son. But who knew that when I opened my eyes again, I was back before the car accident. Mom, is Dad not coming home again tonight? Does he not want us anymore? The little person nestled in my arms and closed the comic book in his hand. After I was stunned for 2 seconds, I pulled him into my arms. Sonny? Baby, it's so good that you're fine. Mom, what's wrong with you? The little head rose from my arms. His little hand was even patting my back. I reached out and touched his head and burst into tears of joy. If I had known that I could see you after dying, I wouldn't have lived so many days. Mom, do you have a fever? The little hand was pulled out from under my armpit and placed on my forehead. Warm. Warm. No, how can I feel warmth? Didn't I die? I bit the back of my hand belatedly. It hurt. Although it wasn't as painful as a broken leg by a fraction, it still hurt. But can people feel pain after they die? Ding dong, the phone suddenly popped up a WeChat notification sound. I was a bit confused and unlocked it. When I saw who sent the message and the content, I gasped. Me? I was reborn? Then is my son Sonny also. Sonny, does your stomach hurt? No, Mom. Sonny doesn't hurt anymore since he listened to Mom and didn't secretly drink cold water. It's confirmed. My son didn't come back to life. I even suspected that the previous death, broken leg, and revenge were all dreams. But looking at the messages in the phone that were exactly the same as in my memory, I fell into deep thought. Whether it's a dream or not, I can just go and verify it. This time, I didn't drive like in my previous life. Instead, I drove the car out and put it in the mall garage. Then I took a taxi to the vicinity of the car accident in my dream or in my previous life. In my memory, before the accident, I was so angry that I didn't have time to think carefully. After the accident, I was so full of hatred that I didn't have a chance to think carefully. Now thinking about it, that car accident was really too strange. If Rachel hadn't been waiting on my only way long ago, then she must have installed surveillance in my house without my knowledge and monitored my every move. I don't know if Penny had a hand in this. I dare not leave my son who has been recovered after being lost alone at home. Fortunately, there is a bus stop by the roadside where the car accident happened. Standing behind the blue stop sign with Sonny, no one notices us at all. Mom, are we waiting for someone? Sonny looked up at me. Probably seeing that I haven't had a smiling face all this time. He stretched out his little hand and pinched the tip of my finger. Mom, don't be unhappy. Sonny will always be with you. Good boy. I squatted down and pinched my son's chubby little face. Just then, I heard voices. What's going on? According to the time, it should have arrived. Mom, Rachel. Shh. I quickly covered my son's mouth. Through the gap in the stop sign, I saw Rachel park her car by the side, take out her mobile phone and get out of the car. She also leaned out and looked behind the roadside fence. Then she said to herself, falling from this place, if not dead, one would be disabled. I held my breath and took out my mobile phone. I made a silent gesture to my son and started to enlarge the video recording. Because this place is relatively remote. Except for passing vehicles, there are only 2 or 3 round trips of buses a day. So Rachel's voice is very clear. I saw her open the back door, bend down and say, "Did you remember what Mom just told you?" Remembered. The crisp voice is exactly the same as the voice in my memory that said my son was picked up by the nanny. Even if I don't believe it anymore, I finally confirmed that what I experienced before is not a dream but a rebirth. After all, before this, I had never seen Rachel's daughter, let alone heard her voice. But this voice is like engraved in my bones. It makes me clench my fist involuntarily. Then she continued in a crisp voice, later, Nan will have a scratched skin. Although it doesn't hurt, Nan should pretend to be in great pain and hold back Uncle Penny. In this way, that bitch and her son can miss the best rescue time. Mom can marry Uncle Penny. Then I can live in a big villa every day, eat delicious food and go to the happy world to play. Ambitious? After your mom marries Penny, let alone going to the happy world to play. As long as you act coquettishly, it's not impossible for Uncle Penny to buy it for you. Really, Mom? The little girl jumped for joy. Rachel stood up straight with a hooked lip and held her mobile phone and didn't know what she was fiddling with. What's going on? I clearly saw her drive out in the surveillance. And this road is the only way to the Star Resort. Why hasn't she come yet after such a long time? I dug my fingertips into my palm to restrain the impulse to rush up and slap her. This bitch actually installed surveillance in my house? I don't know if Penny knows about this. But after experiencing everything in my previous life, it doesn't matter even if he is kept in the dark. Penny and I are in a business marriage. After marriage, we are also respectful to each other. My parents used to be in the system. They started business after resigning. Because there were restrictions, I am the only child. Penny's family did have a younger brother, but I heard that he unfortunately died when he was 5. Later, his parents didn't have any more children. So although Penny and I are married, except for the jointly owned vehicle under the name of our wedding house, the companies are managed separately. There is no property entanglement. If we really go through a divorce, it will be very easy. But thinking of my son's indirect death because of him in my previous life, I don't want to divorce so easily. If it weren't for his confusion and ambiguous relationship with his ex-girlfriend, I wouldn't have angrily driven to the resort to reason with him because of an provoked message from his ex-girlfriend and fallen into Rachel's trap. Speaking of this Rachel, although I hate her deeply, I have to say that she is really talented. Penny's parents also started from scratch. In the early years when they were busy, they left Penny at his grandma's house in the countryside. Speaking of it, Penny and Rachel can also be regarded as childhood sweethearts. From primary school to high school, when Penny's father's career improved, he once thought about transferring him to a big city. But because of Penny's threat of death, he finally had to compromise. Rachel once told me that the reason why Penny was unwilling to leave was because of her. Now it seems that it's not false. But at that time, Rachel didn't know Penny's family background. She just dated him because of his good looks. And on the day of registration in college, she chose to unilaterally break up with Penny because of the fierce pursuit of a rich second generation. Until the junior year, when she saw Penny's father who looked 5 points similar to Penny on the big screen in the cafeteria and the host introduced that he was the most influential entrepreneur in the city. Only then did she suddenly realize that she had missed a super rich second generation. Of course, she definitely wouldn't tell me these things. All of this is what I investigated. No wonder this person is talented. At that time, she didn't go to find Penny to argue about his hidden identity. Instead, she went abroad by taking advantage of the rich second generation. She was away for 10 years. In these 10 years, Penny and I got to know each other, got married and had children. And she was not idle either. First, she spread the word that she was once forced and had to submit to a rich second generation to treat her mother who had cancer at home. Later, she labeled her unilateral breakup as how guilty she was and didn't dare to face Penny, so she fled. One by one, intentionally or unintentionally, they were passed into Penny's ears through the mouths of their former classmates. Penny is not stupid. She even investigated. As a result, it was shown that Rachel's mother did indeed have cancer. For this reason, Penny even felt guilty, thinking that he didn't notice it in time back then, which made her beloved person submit to others for money. But being as intelligent as he is, he didn't investigate in detail for some reason. Maybe it's because of being close to home but feeling timid or something. On the contrary, I used my superpower to find out the time when Rachel's mother was diagnosed with cancer. Neither too early nor too late, it was just the second year after Rachel went abroad. And it's not as she said that she was with the rich second generation for money. It's just that I didn't have time to tell him all these in my previous life. The reason why I went to the villa angrily this time was also to throw these evidences in Penny's face. But unexpectedly, I even suspect that it was after Rachel knew from the surveillance camera that I already knew most of her secrets that she took risks and decided to fake a car accident and cause my death. If I weren't the victim, I would want to give her a thumbs up. Leaving without saying goodbye back then and then coming back to become the white moonlight of the past. What a beautiful story plot. It's a pity that she forgot that she still has a rich second-generation boyfriend. He is abroad, not dead. Although they haven't obtained a marriage certificate, the man recognizes the child. Moreover, he hasn't missed a single monthly alimony payment. If Rachel wants to use Penny's power to get rid of her rich second-generation boyfriend by making up stories, it depends on whether I agree or not. As early as when Rachel was impatiently waiting, I took my son and left from the green belt. But I didn't rush home to remove those surveillance cameras that I don't know where they are hidden. Instead, I went to a law firm first and consulted about some matters regarding divorce. Of course, the company also has lawyers, but I don't want my parents to worry about this, so I plan to handle it myself. But along the way, I found that my son was a bit too taciturn. "Sonny, why aren't you talking? Was Mom scaring you just now?" "No, Mom." Sonny shook his head. In the rearview mirror, he frowned. "Mom, is that Rachel a bad person? Is she a mistress?" I was shocked into a cold sweat. My son is only 5 years old. Who told him these things? After my patient guidance, he said angrily, "Rachel also said that Mom is a mistress and stole Dad. She wants to take Dad back and also said that I have to call her Mom in the future." "When did she say that?" "It was when you were on a business trip. When Dad was busy, she came to take care of me at home. But I scolded her back then and wanted to drive her away. It was she who was shameless and wouldn't leave. She also touched things everywhere in the house. She didn't stop harassing me again and again until she probably saw me playing it on the surveillance camera." My immature plan and my heart matured as my son nodded. Almost as soon as I finished my work and entered the door, Rachel's voice message was sent. She asked me why I didn't come. She taunted me if I didn't dare. I watched her send and then withdraw, and then resend. She didn't stop harassing me again and again until she probably saw me playing it on the surveillance camera. I said, how dare she send me messages so unscrupulously, either showing off, or being sarcastic, or forcing me. It turns out that she can hear clearly in the surveillance camera. But does she think others are fools? I took a look at the voice message that had been forwarded to the file assistant. I just hope she can send me more things. It would be best if there are some ambiguous photos that I didn't have time to save last time. The more the better. But to my disappointment, in the next month, Penny neither came home nor went to see her. I don't know what he is busy with. Just when I was fully prepared and ready to take the initiative, his message and Rachel's message came at the same time. "You still don't know, do you? Brother Penny has gone to other places to discuss projects recently. Didn't he tell you? After he comes back, he will come to me first and make a loving dinner for me and my daughter." Forward. Withdraw. Save. Withdraw. It's all about seeing who is faster. When the password lock outside the door was pressed, I also put down my phone. Penny seemed very tired. Yes, dealing with 2 women and 2 children at the same time, he must be a bit tired. "You're back?" I pretended as if nothing had happened. I deliberately went forward to help him take off his tie and hooked his neck with disgust. I think Rachel at the other end of the surveillance camera must be gnashing her teeth in anger. But Penny was a bit surprised. After all, during this period of time, I didn't give him a good look because of Rachel. Through the experience of 2 lifetimes, I know that this man is not heartless to me. It's just that I don't care anymore. I have always had everything unique since I was young, and men are the same. If it's dirty, throw it away. This is a realization I only had after dying once. My son and I are still living healthily in this world. And the reason why I deal with Penny and anger Rachel is certainly not my main purpose. In families as evenly matched as ours, unless I have conclusive evidence in hand, I only have a 50% chance of getting custody of my son, because of my considerateness and taking the initiative to give a way out. Penny began to reflect. To my surprise, he promised me for the first time that he wouldn't divorce. Even implicitly and explicitly said that he only regarded Rachel as his younger sister. I forcibly suppressed the wildly rising corners of my mouth. Sure enough, the next second, Penny's phone rang. He looked at me and wanted to hang up. I tactfully entered the bedroom and turned on my phone. Surveillance? Who can't install it? A pinhole camera can be placed casually. It's an easy thing. Even Rachel, who is staring at my house 24 hours a day, probably won't notice it. Coincidentally, Penny just stood in the position of the surveillance camera. Although I can't see him, I can clearly hear the voice from the other end of his phone. With a crying tone, "Brother Penny, Nan has a fever. I, don't worry. I'll come over now. I coldly put away my phone. The next second, the door was pushed open. Joy, about Rachel. Go ahead. Penny was very surprised by my tolerance. He was stunned for a long time before turning and walking out. But halfway through, he turned back again. I'll be back soon. I lowered my head. He thought I was sad. Hesitating to speak, he left with difficulty. Little did he know that I was disgusted. You should know that it takes 20 minutes for a round trip to the apartment Rachel rents. This means that Penny didn't even stay at Rachel's house for 5 minutes. So boring. He even wants to touch me. After I refused him because of my menstrual period, he was very lonely. He began to reflect more and carefully tried to please me, which was disgusting. 5 days passed in a flash. Penny has been coming home every day these 2 days. Just when I was struggling and couldn't use my menstrual period as an excuse anymore and was planning to show my cards, the opportunity came. Joy, there is a cocktail party tonight. Come with me. At that time, you don't need to drink. Just accompany me. He unexpectedly put his hand on my stomach. I almost instinctively knocked his hand away. Fortunately, after stretching out my hand, I reacted and quickly withdrew it. Then I heard him say again, I know you are not feeling well. It's okay. My menstrual period is over. After I finished speaking, Penny's expression was visibly excited. At this evening party, under the deliberate persuasion of other company executives and me, he drank until he was almost unconscious. After taking him back to the suite prepared by the organizer, I went out and stopped an unfamiliar man passing by. My phone is out of power. Can I borrow your phone to make a call? The man is very unfamiliar. I haven't seen him before. But his eyebrows and eyes are cold and intimidating. Just when I was about to give up, he took out his phone from his pocket and handed it over. I found Rachel's number and dialed it. Deliberately lowering my voice, I said, Hello, are you Mrs. Penny? He is drunk now. Yes, it's Duhong Hotel, room 3016. Okay, you're welcome. After I hung up the phone, I felt a little guilty. Smiling embarrassedly at the man's outstretched hand, I said, Can I send 2 more messages? As you wish. The voice is as cold as the person. Without hesitation, I found my parents-in-law's numbers and sent out the location and a message asking them to pick up Penny. After thanking the man and watching him walk away, I entered the next room. 15 minutes later, there were furtive footsteps in the corridor outside. I opened a crack in the door. Sure enough, I saw Rachel pushing open the door of the next room with a proud face. The moment the door was closed, I walked out. This hotel belongs to the organizer. Generally, when holding such cocktail parties, the corridor surveillance will be turned off. So I'm not worried at all about being seen living next door. After swiping the room card to open the door of the next room at the right time, because the sound was too low, plus the suite was very large, and the 2 people in the room were passionately entwined. I went in and out without being noticed, probably because I designed it myself. I didn't have much feeling about this scene. It felt quite disgusting. After about 10 more minutes, I heard the elevator door open. I hurriedly ran to another corner and came out again. Sure enough, I saw my parents-in-law walking over from the other side. I looked surprised. Mom and Dad, why are you here? Joy? Are you with Penny? Yes. Penny is drunk. After I sent him back to the room, I went to greet some acquaintances in front. Now that they are gone, I come back. No. Why are you here? My parents-in-law were also a little puzzled. Maybe it's because the hotel attendant saw that you weren't there and was afraid that Penny would be left unattended, so they called us. That's not right, Mom. Where did the attendant get your phone number? As I said this, I walked to the door. Why is this door open? Joy, you forgot your bag. Just then, my sisters who I had arranged in advance also came over. Several men followed behind. Some were their own husbands, and some were suitors. I was very satisfied. But just as I was about to push the door and enter, my mother-in-law seemed to react. She pressed my hand. Joy, your dad and I will take care of Penny. You and your little sisters haven't seen each other for a long time. Go and chat. No need, Mom. We've finished chatting. On the contrary, you and Dad are getting old. That waiter must have checked Penny's phone and called you from afar. Go back and rest. As I said, I pushed the door open forcefully. I have to admire the sound insulation effect of this room. After closing the door, I didn't hear anything, but as soon as the door opened, the moans inside couldn't be blocked. I pretended to be stunned. Then, regardless of the obstruction of my parents-in-law, I rushed in. My good sisters naturally wouldn't let go of such an exciting moment. When the two people on the bed reacted, there were already a group of people standing by the bed. Probably startled, Penny's drunkenness seemed to have sobered up by half. He was a little panicked. Wife, why are you here? Penny, you actually? I was sobbing uncontrollably. My mother-in-law rushed up furiously. Bitch, you seduced my son. Rachel was so frightened that she pulled the quilt to cover herself. However, my mother-in-law was still vigorous and didn't give her a chance at all. The naked body was completely seen by the men behind me. I even heard the sound of swallowing saliva from behind. Brother Penny, save me. I don't know if it's the protective instinct in men's bones at work or what. After being called by her, Penny actually got up and blocked his mother's attack. With this block, I had even more reasons. Divorce. I rushed out of the door in tears. But unexpectedly, I bumped into someone. Looking up, my tears were scared back. Without thinking much, I pulled him and ran outside. Fortunately, my sisters are all fair-weather friends. With excitement to watch, they won't follow me out. Running all the way to the elevator and seeing the elevator door close, I let go of him. Name a price. As long as you don't talk about today's matter, I'll give you as much as you want. Really? Then please ask Rachel to take care of Chase more in future cooperation. Chase? I was puzzled. He nodded. Chase. My pupils quaked. I actually mentioned money in front of a bigwig in the Beijing circle. Too hasty. But presumably at his level, he must not be interested in meddling in other people's business. Thinking this way, after the elevator door opened, I rushed out with a forced smile. After Penny's infidelity, my divorce went much more smoothly. Not only did I get custody of my son, but even the house and car I lived in were all transferred to my name because of Penny's guilt. If you ask me if I feel guilty, I want to say, how is that possible? Not only that, I still feel it's not enough. If Penny was really drunk to death, would he still have the strength to have fun with others? Although I'm not a man, I also know that men can act so well when they are 7 parts drunk that it makes you cry. He may have been really drunk and groggy at first, but judging from his shock after I entered the door, it can be imagined that he knew that the person having fun with him was not me. So why should I feel guilty? But Rachel is probably going to be disappointed. She thought that by having sex, she could smoothly enter Penny's family. But her wishful thinking will ultimately fail. After all, my mother-in-law is not someone to be trifled with. Back then, there were many families on an equal footing with mine. I was able to marry Penny also thanks to my mother-in-law. How could she let a woman with no background and carrying someone else's child enter her family? It's already good if she doesn't beat or scold her. What's more, forcing her to go abroad is not impossible. But before she goes abroad, I had already made other plans. On the day when Rachel's rich second-generation boyfriend returned to China, I coincidentally found some surveillance cameras that I didn't know who installed from home. After calling the police followed the clues and found Rachel. She should have been convicted. But because the transfer procedures for this house haven't been completed yet, there is still half of it belonging to Penny. His letter of understanding broke my plan. What's more, he even helped Rachel resist her rich second-generation boyfriend regardless of his parents' opposition. Rachel also escaped punishment because of this. I was so angry that I only hated that secretly taking pictures couldn't be used as evidence to sue Rachel for attempted murder last time. But these videos and recordings and so on can just be given to Penny. Sure enough, Penny came to the door on the same day after seeing the message. But it just so happened that I wasn't at home. It just so happened that I was talking about cooperation with Chase in the coffee shop at the door. So Penny was completely broken. He made a scene regardless of his image and completely offended the bigwig in the Beijing circle. Causing some trouble to his family's business is just an incidental matter. Penny's parents are very shrewd. Seeing that the situation is not good, they come to ask for forgiveness and even write half of the property in their will and leave it to my son. In that case, I don't want the remaining half. After all, with Chase around, it's not my turn. The former helmsman of the Penny family is now famous for his unseemly ranting in a coffee shop without any grace due to his infidelity. The stocks of the Penny family keep falling. I know that this is Chase's doing. I was just worried that my son would be unhappy if he knew. Who would have thought that after hearing the news, he opened his little mouth and directly said, "He deserves it." He also urged me to change his last name quickly. As for Rachel, her rich second-generation boyfriend is notoriously ruthless. Hitting women and such are minor things. The reason he stays abroad all year round is that he always gets into trouble. Although it's not fatal, he will still be locked up for a few years. His parents, fearing that he will squander the family fortune, simply found a foreign country where the legal coverage is not so comprehensive. After he learned about Rachel's fickleness and her passionate affair with Penny, it is said that he still took her away with a smile. But people in the circle already know Rachel's fate. It's probably not going to be good. As for Penny, after the collapse of the Penny family, he became diligent. He took the timely rescued funds and went to another city. It seems that he is planning to make a comeback. But because the internet is so developed, his notoriety is already known all over the world. It seems that it's not so easy to rise again. Someone asked me if I'm not afraid of Penny's revenge. I was both amused and annoyed. Of course I'm not afraid. This is not a place outside the law. Even if he has that intention, he has to have that opportunity. Moreover, Penny won't. Why are you so sure? My friend was puzzled. I just smiled and said nothing. Because Penny has always been a person with evil intentions but no courage. Otherwise, I wouldn't have personally intervened and facilitated his relationship with Rachel. Moreover, his parents are still alive. He is not a desperado. How could he possibly take revenge regardless? Some friends think I'm too magnanimous. Actually, it's not the case. To punish a man, rather than let him die quickly, it's better to boil a frog in warm water and let him fall from the clouds all of a sudden, taste all the bitterness, but still not succeed. That's what makes people despair. After everything is settled, I am so busy that I hardly have time to rest. But I haven't relaxed my discipline of my son for a moment. Strive to prevent him from being like his father. Fortunately, my son is also competitive. And recently, I don't know why, he seems to be more and more mature. When asked, he said that Uncle Chase said that a man should protect his family instead of letting his family protect him. So now I have to study hard and grow up quickly so that I can protect Mom in the future. Looking at my little boy clenching his little fist as if taking an oath, I laughed and collapsed on the sofa. When I got up, I saw someone come uninvited again, carrying a bunch of ingredients. Bunch of ingredients. Bunch of ingredients. Bunch of ingredients. Bunch of ingredients.